Hello and welcome to the Mediums podcast. I'm really excited. Today I have the intuition goddess. Okay, I'm going to do that again because that was terrible. By the way, I forgot to ask you, how do you pronounce your last name?
Conger.
Conger. Okay, good. Okay, take two.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Mediums podcast. I'm excited that you're here today, and I have the intuition goddess, Jen Conger, with us on the podcast today. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have this convo with you.
Same. I'm so happy. And we happen to both be Nebraskans, which is very rare that I meet another Nebraskan that's in this space, and I love it. So,
I know,
so cool.
same. It's so cool. We had to not start the podcast on time because we both had tornado sirens going on because this is the time they test, I guess. Wednesdays at 11.
That's right. And wild, I won't get into the details of it, but my college got hit by a tornado when I was in school. So I am very thankful for tornado warning signs.
Wow.
Totally fine. I know. Crazy, huh?
So crazy.
Okay. So let's get into the deets. I can't wait to hear all about your story. I would love for you to tell me, how did your intuitive gifts show up in the world? Have you always had them? Give us all the skinny on your intuition.
Yes. Okay. I'm trying to think back to the very first moment where I'm like, oh, I have intuition. And there was definitely something that happened to me in my early 20s. But if I look back beyond that pivotal moment, which I'd love to share with you, I grew up in a household where the supernatural and life beyond the physical was a very common conversation. And it was just part of our belief system. We would tell ghost stories, and my grandfather would tell me stories about people that he knew that passed on that would come back and haunt him. And just the house that I grew up in, the owner that built the house from the ground up passed away in his sleep inside of the house. And I very much felt his energy as a child, but I didn't necessarily know what it was that I was experiencing. I didn't define it as intuition or anything like that. But I definitely had encounters. I had things that visited me in the night because I do remember some instances of waking up scared and crying, and my mom coming into my room, and what she would tell me is, your angels are around you, you're safe, and help calm my nerves and things like that. So there's glimpses of my childhood where I had experiences, and I definitely was open to it and believed in it. But I would say the one moment that happened where I was like, something is communicating with me. I was in college at the time. I was probably about 21 years old. And I went to college in Orange County. And then I had a boyfriend who lived down in San Diego. So for anybody familiar with California, that's a little bit of a trek.
Yep.
And so what I would do is my classes would get out Thursday night, and I would just take the 5 freeway all the way south from Orange County to San Diego, spend the weekend with him, and then come back Sunday night. And that was just my routine. So any other Thursday, I'm on the freeway driving way too fast in the fast lane, probably 90, 95 miles an hour. I just want to get there. It's dark. It's late. I'm tired. And I hear something in my head say, slow down and pull over. And I'm like, that kind of came out of nowhere. Why am I having that thought? Why am I thinking this? And I just ignored it, went about my way. I heard it a second time, slow down and pull over. And at this point, I'm like, okay, am I thinking this? Why am I thinking this? I start to look around my surroundings. Is there something that I'm picking up on? Is there something in the road up ahead? I'm questioning, I'm trying to make sense of this thought. Again, just ignored it. And it's 11:11 right now as I'm telling you.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. The third time I heard it, it was as if somebody was in the back seat yelling at me, Jen, slow down and pull over. It came with a frantic energy. And I was like, okay, this doesn't make any sense, but I'm just going to listen to it. Why not? I took my foot off the gas. I start to look in my mirrors to make my lane change and move over to the slow lane. And as I'm doing that, I'm seeing behind me headlights dashing in and out of the cars behind me. And I kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, oh, great. Somebody's racing down the freeway, and I'm just getting over, slowing down. They whip past me and cause the most horrific car crash that I've ever seen in my entire life. It was like a scene out of Fast and Furious. And there's cars spinning and stopping and swerving all over. I slam on my brakes so hard that I'm fishtailing back and forth through glass and car parts. And I end up driving past one of the cars that was racing, was crunched like an accordion in the center divider in the fast lane. And at this point, my adrenaline's taking over. I immediately call 911, and the 911 operator was telling me the accident's already been reported. And there was something about her voice. I felt like she's not taking me seriously. It was almost like she was so calm and I was so frantic that I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like, people have died. This is really, really serious. And I remember her telling me, ma'am, are you alone? Is there somewhere where you can go that's well lit and safe? Can you get off of the freeway? I want to stay on the phone with you. Because I think I was probably like hyperventilating and having
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a panic attack. And so she stayed on the phone with me. I got off the freeway. I went to probably a gas station or something and parked. And I started calming down. And then she got off the phone with me. And then it dawned on me, something told me to get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've told this story 100 times and I get emotional almost every
Oh,
time.
I got full body chills like everywhere.
It's just one of those experiences that it's like, it changes the whole trajectory of your life. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, something told me to get out of the way. That means something saved me.
Yeah.
What was that something? What was that? And if it communicated with me now, can it communicate with me more? Can I actively communicate with it? And it just opened up this whole, like, the rest of my life was changed in search of deeper understanding of what that was and why it saved me. And so that was like the biggest pivotal moment. And then, of course, since then, it's been a journey of opening and expanding my gifts and having more and more experiences like that. That, I should probably write a book. I think
Yeah.
that'll be the
I
next
think you should too.
it's
And
just so
you
amazing.
call your crew the light team. So
Yes.
how did that come about? I love that. So I call it my spirit team, but I love the
Yeah.
light team. I love calling it that.
Yeah. Well, a few years back, probably around 2018, 2019, my gifts really exploded. My grandmother, who was like a second mother to me, crossed over. And when she crossed over, I knew it. I'll never
Hmm.
forget. I was out on our deck and we were having brunch. It was a Saturday or a Sunday morning because I know the kids weren't in school. And I was telling all these amazing stories about my grandma, and she was in hospice. So we knew it wasn't going to be long. And I was sharing all these fond memories of playing paper dolls with her and all this imaginative play. She was so great at that we used to do all while I was growing up, and telling my boys lots of stories about her. And then one of my sons goes, Mom, look, there's a cross in the sky.
Oh,
And I still have a picture, it's favorited on my phone, of clouds making a perfect cross in the sky.
yeah.
And I'm like, I think grandma passed on. And sure enough, I got a call a few hours later that she had crossed over. And around that time, I was doing business coaching. My background is in online marketing and sales. And so when I decided to start my business, I'm like, I'm going to just help people. I was doing done for you services. And then I was starting to do more strategic consulting. I started getting into creating courses and things like that. But it was all very strategic,
Hmm.
masculine, all of this. And I was dabbling a little bit in, can I bring my intuition into this and what would that look like? Well, after she passed, I started getting visions while I'm on coaching calls with clients. And so one client in particular, she's telling me about some money stories, and we're working through, like, how do we shift this belief in her mind around money and open herself up to receive more money and things like that. And I keep seeing this vision of this whole movie like playing out in my mind's eye. And so I tell her, I'm like, I'm seeing something. It's kind of weird, but I'm intuitive. And would it be okay with you if I shared this vision that I'm receiving and see if we can make sense of it together? And she was like, oh my God, you've been holding out on me. Yes, I would love to. Like, I'm totally into all of this stuff. I'm like, okay, great. So
Yeah.
I tell her, like, I'm seeing this man and he's in an office, and I'm describing the office to a T. And there's this older man that comes into the office, and I can sense the tension between them. They're not seeing eye to eye. There's a disagreement. And she's like, you're describing my husband and his job. And she goes, my husband has been wanting to quit his job, and we really need my business to work so that I can retire him and then he can go do what he wants to do. He
Yeah.
doesn't get along with his boss at all and all of this stuff. And so I'm like, I think that this is something actually that you need to work on with your husband, and that you guys have some healing and planning and work to do together to clear whatever's blocking the money from flowing into your business. Because right now there's too much pressure and it can't come through.
Yeah.
So they started doing all this work. And then all of a sudden she had a 30K month and a 40K month, and things were just rocking and rolling with her. And I'm like, I'm on to something here. So that
Yeah.
changed my business. But what I came to realize was my grandma was helping me. And so I've learned on my own. And then I also have psychic friends who have confirmed this for me, that we had a contract. And so once
Mm-hmm.
she crossed over, our contract was she was going to help me in the physical to open and expand my gifts and begin to communicate and show things to me. And so I started really communicating a lot more intentionally with her. And that's when the word light team came into being, because I would be like, who am I talking to? Is this grandma? And, trying to differentiate like what feels like my grandmother versus what feels like my higher self, which feels like my spirit guide. And, starting to sense the nuances and the differences in the
Mm-hmm.
energy and the way they were communicating with me. And then one day when I was like, who am I talking to? It just came through. We are your light team.
Yeah. I
And
love
so
it.
your light team is a whole group of non-physical beings that support you here in the physical. And it includes your higher self and your angels, your guardian angels, your spirit guides, your ancestors. I have a lot of people that work with galactic teams. So, like Palladian and Arcturian and things like that. So it's like, to me, it's this whole group. They're all included within this light team. And the thing that I find so fascinating about them is that they've told me, like, we are in boardrooms just like you are, discussing how we can help you in the physical. And so give us assignments, let us know what projects you're working on, let us help you manifest this in the physical. And so a lot of times I imagine them sitting in a boardroom
Love
table and
that.
like talking about how can we help Jen Conger today? And it's the same for you and everybody else listening.
Well, I love that. And it's so crazy you said that. We have so many different fun synchronicities between you and I. But my
Oh,
grandfather, who passed away, came to me when I first saw a medium, and he said, "I'm contracted to be with you the rest of your life, and I'm here to help you." And so he is
oh,
also my person. And so but
oh.
I can tell because I can feel him here just above my heart, and I can feel my
Mhm.
angels all over my arms and legs and everywhere else. So I can actually feel
Yeah.
him in a different place in my body, which is
Ooh,
also kind of
so
weird.
cool.
But I just
Yeah,
learned, like self-taught, like, okay, you're showing up this way, you're showing up that way. This is how I know what I'm experiencing. Or if I'm
yeah.
doing channeled readings for other people, I can feel their deceased loved ones show up like pressure on my chest. That's how I can tell if they're a past, somebody that's passed over or a guardian angel. So
Yeah.
wild.
I'll notice. So that's all your like clear sentient. That's all your
Yes.
physical.
Yeah.
I'll notice what direction they're communicating from. So if it's behind me, like literally, like I said, it was as if somebody was in the back seat yelling at
Yeah.
me. I can feel it as if there's a physical person behind me talking to me over my shoulder. That's my light team. When I'm doing readings or working with clients, it's always in front of me.
Oh,
You know,
interesting.
it might be over here, it might be over there, like left or right, but it's almost always in front of me. And then I'll tell people, this is your light team because it's coming this way, like as if somebody's in front of me talking to me. So it's really interesting how you just notice those subtle nuances that give you clues to what it is you're communicating with. So
Like
fun.
even right now, my throat chakra is like glittery tingliness everywhere because you and I are just speaking our
Mm,
truth in the world. And
yeah.
it's just like, I mean, it's just like glittered tingleness everywhere. It's
So
so wild.
fun.
Yeah, just so fun.
Love it.
Okay, so I love that you and I are busting down into the business world with our intuitive gifts. Like, I have actually been
Mhm.
coaching some leaders where I do traditional executive coaching and then we do readings with every single one of their sessions.
Love it.
And just yesterday, I sat on a panel of women leaders that, like mid career, like 30 to 55 women leaders, and just was speaking freely about how the next generation of business leaders are going to be using intuition as their superpower and how
Right.
we need to break down these walls of business. So
Yeah.
I love that you use your tools to help other entrepreneurs and business leaders awaken to their wisdom within. So
Yeah.
how did that keep showing up for you after that one experience? Did you keep doing more and more and more of this intuitive business world stuff?
That is exactly what happened. So I had that experience and it really opened my eyes to the fact that everything's happening at an energetic level, first and foremost. And so the strategy is very, very important, but it only can take us as far as our energetic boundaries will allow us to
Mm,
go. So if I can provide intuitive insight into what's happening energetically, we can clean some stuff up over here that our logical mind might not even make the correlation is affecting the result over here. And then all of a sudden, the doors just open. And I think it's really interesting too, because when you have conversations, even with myself and like other clients, and you look back and you're like, how did you just bring in 30 grand, 40 grand when the month before you did like five? Like, walk me through what happened. And it's like, sure, there's a strategy that's associated with steps, but it was more like, well, I just started thinking this way instead of this way. And I just felt this way about it instead of feeling this way about it. It's like, yeah, it's all happening energetically. And so, much more powerful could we be if we looked at the energetics first and then distilled the strategy from that place?
well, I love that. And I just feel like the world is waking up and
Oh, yeah,
intuition is starting to become a real thing. And
totally.
honestly, some of the most successful, financially successful people in the world have their intuitives on speed dial. And
Yeah.
I had an intuitive tell me off mic that they have two intuitives on staff at NASA, and I was like, oh,
Wow.
of course they do, but
Yeah.
it's like the average everyday person is unaware. And so I
Yeah.
think it's so cool to have people like you and me out in the world just shining light on everyday people to help them learn like some of the secret tools that some of the most successful people in the world have been already using for, centuries.
100%. Like, I
Yeah.
was on Instagram. It's probably been like a few months since this, but the woman who started Spanx, what is her name?
Oh
Sarah
yeah, Sarah Blakely.
Yeah,
Blakely?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
She I should know this because I follow her on Instagram, but
Yeah,
it's
I
just
do too.
escaping me. She had a reel that went viral and people were sharing it with me. And it was her saying, the number one thing that got Spanx to $1 billion, it wasn't the blood, sweat, and tears. It wasn't all of this and that and the other thing that I did. She goes, it was me following my intuition. My intuition is the number one thing that grew this business. And like, we need more leaders like her saying that to, again, open and awaken people to the fact of like, hey, I'm intuitive, and that doesn't mean I'm a psychic or a medium or a witch or any of these other
Yes.
things. It's like I am human, therefore I am intuitive, and it just becomes a natural part of our essence as a human collective. Like, that's my mission in life, is for everybody to believe that they're intuitive and be able to co-create with their light team.
I love that. And I use the phrase co create too, because I think that
Yeah.
that's truly what it is.
Yeah.
It's all of our team and spirit, our light team. and they have our backs. Like they want to help us. So I love when you said,
Yes.
like, give them an assignment, call them in, ask for their help. They're like waiting in the wings, like begging us to
Yep.
like, help me, help me. You know, they want to be there to help us.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me what it's like for you after you do intuitive work. Do you need to clear your energy? Do you need to do things to release some of that or ground yourself
Mm.
back into like Mother Earth? Or do you have pretty good, like stable energy all the time? I feel like it's different for everybody.
I have gotten to the place where I feel like I have pretty good stable energy all of the time. But I would say early on in doing this work with others, I realized I would carry their energy with me throughout the day, not knowing it. And so I would have like, it would show up as emotions. I'd start feeling a certain way. And I'm like, why am I feeling this way? And then I just would realize, like, this isn't even mine. And then I'd realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm still tethered to and connected to the person I just read. And so then I would ask my light team to like release that connection for the time being and put myself in a white light and just really focus on clearing that energy. But now I just have a very simple practice. So right before I get onto a call, I say a prayer inviting my light team in, and I ask them to cleanse the space and remove all lower or unwanted or negative energies and vibes from the space and my client's space. And I invite in my client's light team and I say, I'm open to receiving your wisdom for the greatest and highest good of my client, and really setting the intention that not that anything that is not for the greatest and highest good is not welcome and actually needs to leave.
Yeah.
And so that takes me like a minute, to do that. And then after the call, I actually say another little prayer of gratitude. And I thank my light team and I thank their light team. And to me, that tends to sort of then kind of dissolve that connection and I can go and be about my way without holding on to anything that's really theirs. And so that has been a really good practice to get me in the zone, get the channels opened, and just feel like I'm also connected to light energy. Because I've also had situations where I was connecting to something that was definitely more lower vibe or more darker. And I really have learned through that process of like, I have to be clean about this and very clear about what is allowed to communicate with me and what isn't. Um, so that's like a good recommendation to people who are listening to, yeah, do your little prayer, bring in the light and make sure that everything's for highest and greatest good. And we're connecting with the highest sources of love.
I literally do exactly the same thing.
So good. Of course you do.
Yeah, but it's the same. I like, same. Invite their team for, I say the highest and best good for all, but I think that's also the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
Okay,
it.
so I want to switch gears a little because I'm a mama. You also have kiddos. What is
Yeah.
it like to show up in the world intuitively and also be an active member of your community, be a parent, like showing up in the world? Like, what's that
Yeah.
like for you? Do you tell people this is what I do for a living? Like, how do you navigate those waters?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And I'm going to be completely honest because the ego part of me wants to respond saying, like, yes, I show up totally fully as my authentic self and it's so amazing. But, like, actually, that's my biggest wound. In this lifetime, I know for sure that is my biggest wound, is to really allow my throat chakra to open, to really show up as my authentic, purest self. And every time I feel like, okay, I've gotten there a little bit more, something else happens. Then I'm like, okay, I'm working through this same trauma and this same wound again, just at a different level. And it almost always goes back to that. So that is something that has definitely been a trial for me in this lifetime. And I know that it stems back to being burned at the stake. I even went to hypnotherapy to try to understand what's at the root of this and can I clear it at a subconscious level. And while I was working with the hypnotherapist, I saw a past life where I was burned at the stake and experienced all of the emotion associated with it. Like I saw the crowd parting ways for me to walk through the crowd up to the stage. I passed by a daughter looking at me in my eyes, crying, knowing what was about to happen to me. Like, and I felt so much anger and rage. Like I died feeling so much rage in my heart. And that's has stuck with me in this lifetime. Um, so, how I've had to navigate that is actually having really clear boundaries. And I do have some protective walls up. So, if I'm out at a barbecue, with all of the neighbors, I'm not talking about intuition. Hardly ever, unless there's somebody who follows me on Instagram, follows the intuition goddess, because I actually have now two accounts. And part of the reason why I started the intuition goddess account is because I wanted to have a safe space where I could just show up authentically me and do a deeper, more personal dive into the intuition piece. Because on my Jen Conger account, I have a lot of family members and in laws and parents, that follow me on there. And I'm like, I just don't feel comfortable really showing up and talking about this stuff there, because my ego mind is always going to make up a story that that person's judging you. That
Well,
person doesn't like you now.
the
That person,
reality is they probably are judging you.
yeah,
You know
or
what I
that,
mean? You just
and
have
I don't
to,
want it to affect my kids, right?
yeah,
Like, no, my kid didn't get invited to that birthday party. It must be because of the things I'm doing on Instagram, even though it's probably not. Those are going to be the stories I make up in my head.
yeah.
So, my way of navigating that has been to have very clear boundaries of like, I'm going to have this type of conversation with these people that expressed interest and I know are like my people, but they tend to raise their hand first saying, I'm your person. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's have this conversation. I'm all about it. And then over here, it's the other half of me. It's the other half of me that's living and existing and doing the mom world stuff, and we can connect on that level, and that's fine. That's what that relationship is. And I've learned to sort of compartmentalize, how all of these different facets of me get to exist in the world. And one thing that I've learned is like, even though I can be over here as Jen Conger, the mom and entrepreneur, it doesn't mean that I'm not being real and authentic.
Hmm.
So I think I hold the story like, well, I'm not really being real with these people, or these are superficial relationships. And I've actually had to restructure that in my mind and reframe that in my mind to say, no, these can be really deep connections and deep relationships. They just exist in a different atmosphere. And that's okay. I can still bond and be vulnerable and have authentic relationship and have this other aspect of myself not be hanging out at that party. So I think we need to always be challenging the rules that we're setting and the beliefs that we're adhering to. And if it feels like I've made up my mind about something, but it makes me feel bad or it doesn't necessarily serve me, then that's an opportunity for me to reframe that in my mind so that I can go show all of me in the different areas that I exist in this life.
Well, I was a closet medium for years. So I was
Yeah.
the chief sales officer of an ed tech company. And so my public facing world was very corporate. And,
Yeah.
I was doing readings for people all over the world, but, my in-laws didn't know what I did, like things like that. So when
Yeah.
I really full on went out into this space and, I'm doing readings and speaking publicly about it, I've had to really wrestle with that myself. Like people I
Yeah.
thought were going to be in my corner and be my biggest champions. Like I launched this podcast. I messaged several groups of friends, like my high school friends. They were like, you're amazing. We love you. It's incredible. Like what you want your friends to say when you do
Yes.
something brave, right? And my
Yes.
other group of friends, crickets, nothing, not even a heart, not even a thumbs up, like nothing. Like we
Yeah.
don't know who you are anymore. We are triggered by you. And so I get it because you're a soul having a human experience, but you still
Yeah.
have a human experience. Your soul still, your human self still feels all the feels.
Right. 100%. 100%.
And you will not be surprised by this because I feel like we were absolutely meant to meet. But I was shown that I was burned at the stake in a past life as well, which is why I
Yeah.
didn't come into my gifts until later in my years.
Yeah.
So I think that just, it happens, right? Where we are called to shine light in the world in the way that we're called to do it. And, you still have all of that baggage that you have to work through. So
Yeah. And it's shocking to me how many people I meet that have had a past life experience or a dream where they were burned at the stake. I hear it all the time with clients and in my coaching programs. I'm like, man, how many of us did they kill? Like,
it must
holy,
have been a lot.
like, there's a lot of us. We're all coming back now for this great
That's right.
awakening, all with a very clear mission and job that we're here to do.
That's right. Little did they know we would all come back at the same
They
time.
can't stop us. Come on. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm very curious. Are there certain types of human experiences where you feel your light team more? Like for me, when I'm on an
Mm,
airplane, they are like, we're
mm,
here protecting you. Or when I'm driving, sometimes, especially when I'm driving certain places, I can like feel them more intensely. Do you ever experience
sure.
stuff like that?
Oh, 100%. I would say definitely in the car. I think they're always with me when I'm in the car. And since I had that experience, I'll even notice them telling me, send light to that person.
Mm,
So every time I'm near a motorcycle, for example, I send light to them. And then just certain cars, for whatever reason, they're like, put a protective bubble over that car, send them light. So in the car, for sure. And then I just noticed that my intuition is open while I'm doing mundane tasks.
oh,
Um, because I don't always have time to meditate every day. I wish that I could, and I go in and out of like spurts of having a wonderful daily meditation practice, and then I kind of veer away, and then I come back and veer away. One thing you'll get from me is like brutal honesty. I'm
love it.
definitely more of like that down to earth intuitive. And so I think my light team knows, like, let's communicate with her when she's doing these mundane tasks. And it's because when we're doing those mundane tasks, we're in a form of hypnosis.
That's right.
So I'm doing laundry and I'm getting downloads. I'm doing the dishes. I'm in the shower. My head chakra's open from the water. And, it's like that's when these messages start coming in. And so I've had to like keep my notes app on my phone open, or really like that waking hour, like right before you naturally wake up. I'll get messages all the time in that like half asleep, half awake, dreamy state. And I've learned like I've got to put it in my notes app right away, because once I'm fully awake, I'm not going to remember at all what was said. And so I tend to feel them and get messages while I'm doing those types of things. But that's also because I've always said, like, I'm an open vessel. Like, please communicate with me all of the time whenever you can.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like even like this, I just messaged my friend. She lives in the UK. She's also an intuitive, but I can always message her when I wake up between like 3 and 4 because they've given me downloads and I'm like, oh no, now I'm awake. But she's
Yeah.
always awake. So I can always message her. But I woke up from a dream and I immediately texted her this morning and they gave me this frame of reference of like they called it yesterday land and they showed this image of living in the past and then they showed me future land and what it's like to live in the future and not be present, like in the present moment. And then they said, your
Wow.
present moment is Candyland. And I was like, oh, I'm going to write a blog about that.
I
So I
love.
messaged her and I was like, I don't know. Evidently, they want me to like live in Candyland today.
Okay, so it's so crazy that you said that, because I get the vision of Candyland often. The game
You do?
Candyland.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly what they showed me in my dream last night.
Okay, so I get that vision quite often, and it's a metaphor that my light team gives me often to describe, different ways of being, I guess I would say, or like kind of like choose your own adventure type of thing. It's like whenever somebody comes to me and they're like, I have this decision. Should I take this job or not? Should I move to this place or not? I'm like, okay, let me tune in and see what I'm feeling. And sometimes I will get the board Candyland and like picking a card and it's got 2 yellow squares on it or 1 purple square on it. And
Yeah.
it's like, it doesn't matter what you pick, it's choose your own adventure. Like, just go have fun, go play, is sort
Well,
of the message with it. So it's so
love
funny
it.
that you were shown that, because I see that often.
Well, I've never seen that in my entire life. So I'm going to thank them for preparing me to talk to you today.
Yes. Oh my
I couldn't
gosh.
figure it out. I was like, why aren't they showing me Candyland? All right.
To me,
Yeah.
my interpretation is like, choose your own adventure and have fun. Like, think about when you were a kid and you were playing that game. Like, it was just fun to see what were you going to land on. Like, I remember, I'm not super competitive. I didn't care if I won or got to the thing the fastest or whatever. It was more just like, it's just fun to play. So that's my interpretation of it. But
Love it.
most of the time, that's what I see. I get visions, and then I'm like, okay, now I've got to decode this. What is this? It's always a metaphor for something else. So trying to more deeply understand, what is this? So
Exactly. And I always think like every single person, their decoder is different. It's like
totally,
what is a sign for you is not a sign for me, or when I see that it means this and for you it means that. And it's just like learning a
totally.
new language with your team, I always
I
think.
love that. It is. It's learning a
Yeah.
new language. So good.
Okay, I'm going to do a few little rapid fire favorite things because I love to do this. Okay.
Okay.
What is your favorite food?
Oh, favorite food. I mean, anything Italian, I would say. Like, give me a good chicken parmesan or like some nice homemade ravioli.
You're
Yeah.
happy. Love it.
Yes.
Okay, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
I would love to return to Greece. I know for sure that I've lived in Greece. I went there once and did a little island hopping, and I was like, oh, I've lived here before. So I would love to return because it feels like home.
Love that. That happened to me when I studied abroad in India. I was like, you've been here
Oh,
before. It was
wow.
crazy. So that's a
So
story for
cool.
another day. Tell me your favorite holiday.
My favorite holiday. I mean, it's got to be Christmas. Yeah, I
Love
love
it.
Christmas.
Do you have any favorite animals or spirit animals that are like your go-to signs or anything like that?
Definitely anything to do with birds. So, hawks, eagles, um, cardinals, blue jays. Like, I see them all the time. Owls. I started asking for a sign. Actually, last week I was like, if I'm supposed to do this, show me some owls. Show me an owl. And since then, I've seen like three or four of them. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it today. I'm going to do it today. And like last night, I saw an owl again. I'm like, okay, thank you for the reminder. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Like that one thing I was asking about. Um, so I definitely feel connected to them. Even in my dream space, sometimes I feel like I'm flying like I am a bird. So there's a big connection there with birds.
Love it. Love it. What brings you profound joy?
Mm, such a great question. Quality time with my family,
Hmm.
like all of us laughing together. I've got two boys, they're 7 and 9. And I tell myself all the time, y'all are a lot of work, but you are going to keep me laughing for my entire life. And for that, I am grateful. So the biggest joy is when they say little funny things and all of us laugh and giggle together. That's my favorite.
Love it. What advice would you give other individuals that are trying to build a stronger connection with their own light team and get intuitive guidance?
hmm The very first step, I actually have a 4-step process that I help guide my clients through. And the very first step is ask. And it really is as simple as that. It's ask. I'd like to be in relationship with you. And I would like you to reveal yourself to me. And I'm open to receiving your guidance for my greatest and highest good. And then just let the miracles unfold and have fun with it. As much as you can, don't have any expectation about how it needs to look or feel or be for you, because it's going to be a totally unique experience. And anytime you feel ego coming up saying, this isn't working, this is never going to happen for me, or I'm not special enough to have that, because that happens, it will,
Mm-hmm.
even me, that happens. um, just recognize that's your ego and be like, no, no, I said I made the ask. And so it's coming. And just start to calm the ego down. But that's the first step, is make that ask.
I love that. So, One of the things I love that you do on your Instagram too, that really just exemplifies what you just said. I love that you do what I manifested today. You know, it's
Yes.
like it can be the littlest of things that help guide us. So I love that you do that. How
Yeah.
can people find you, follow you, work with you? Give us all the deets.
Yes. So you can follow me on the new account, which is the Intuition Goddess. I think it's the dot intuition dot goddess. And I'm going to be hanging out there and sharing things on opening and expanding your intuition and co creating with your light team. And then you can also find me on Jen Conger. So if you're an entrepreneur that's looking to use your gifts to open and expand the channels of your business, hang out with me there, because that's when I'm going to get more into business strategy and sales and marketing and some of these other pieces. And then I also have this really beautiful course. I call it the Meet Your Light Team bundle. And I would happily share that link with your audience so they can get it for free.
Oh, that's so
And
nice.
in there, there's a deep hypnosis that will take you on a journey to meet your light team. There's also a 5-minute daily activation meditation that surrounds you in white light and guides you through the prayer to welcome in your light team and receive what's the one thing you can do that day to get closer to your vision or your goal or your purpose or whatever it is for you. And then also it comes with a journal where you can start tracking those messages and your interpretation of the messages and then the action that you're taking on the messages. And so you can really start to like incorporate this into your way of being. So I'll make sure to give you that link if you can pop it in the show notes.
Yep,
I
would
would
love
say
to.
definitely hop into the Meet Your Light Team bundle.
Love it. Well, I am so grateful that you came and did this with me. It has
Me
been such a
too.
joy chatting with you, and I love how many things we have in common. That's just awesome. So I
Me
just wanted to thank
too.
our listeners for hopping on to the Mediums podcast and for listening in on the interview with Jen Conger. As always, rate, share, subscribe. Let's keep growing our community of awakened podcast listeners. Thanks,
Yes.
everybody.
Thank you.